"Get out, you old fool!" my son yelled, kicking me from my mansion. He didn't know my lawyer was already at the bank. The opulent foyer of the sprawling mansion echoed with a chilling silence, broken only by the frantic thumping of Serafina's heart. Her usually serene face, etched with the wisdom of 78 years, was pale. Her son, Jackson, a man of 52 who still carried the entitled air of a perpetually aggrieved teenager, stood before her, his face contorted in a mask of fury. His wife, Briar, lurked in the shadow of the grand staircase, a viperous smile playing on her lips, her eyes glinting with malicious satisfaction. "Get out, you old fool!" Jackson had roared moments before, his voice reverberating through the marble-floored hall. He had punctuated his cruel demand by shoving his mother, Serafina, with surprising force, sending her stumbling back towards the massive oak front door. Her delicate hand reached out, instinctively steadying herself against the cool, unforgiving surface. The words, sharper than any blade, pierced through decades of quiet sacrifice and unrequited love. They hung in the air, a final, definitive period at the end of a long, painful sentence. Serafina did not cry out, did not plead, did not even flinch. A profound shift occurred within her, a silent, irreversible click. The deep well of her patience, long overflowing with their insatiable greed and casual cruelty, had finally run dry. Her eyes, usually soft and forgiving, hardened into chips of glacial ice. She looked at her son, then at her daughter-in-law, not with sorrow, but with a gaze that finally saw them for what they truly were, parasites, devoid of grace or gratitude. She turned, her back ramrod straight, and walked out the door she had purchased for them, closing it softly behind her. Jackson, still seething, watched her go, convinced his outburst had cemented his dominance. Briar smirked, already imagining the peace and quiet without the old bat underfoot. Neither of them knew that Serafina's quiet departure was not a retreat, but the first decisive step in the dismantling of their entire gilded world. Little did they know, her trusted lawyer, Alaric, was already at the bank, awaiting her call. To truly understand the icy resolve that had settled in Serafina's heart that afternoon, one had to trace the serpentine path of her life, a path that had taken a sharp turn nearly 2 decades prior, with the passing of her beloved husband, Arthur. Before Arthur, Serafina had been a woman of quiet dreams and simple joys, finding solace in her garden, the pages of a good book, and the occasional, heartfelt conversation with a trusted friend. Her aspirations had been modest, a loving family, a comfortable home, and the gentle rhythm of a life well lived. Then Arthur had come into her world, a brilliant but unassuming tech pioneer whose mind buzzed with innovative ideas, yet whose heart beat with a profound simplicity she found deeply comforting. Their marriage had been a true partnership, built on mutual respect and unwavering support. Serafina had been his anchor, his confidant, his quiet strength through the tumultuous early days of his entrepreneurial journey, when late nights and lean times were more common than grand successes. She had believed in him implicitly, even when others scoffed, and her unwavering presence had been his greatest encouragement. When Arthur had passed, leaving her an immense fortune, Serafina had viewed it not as a personal indulgence, but as a sacred trust. This wealth, a testament to Arthur's foresight and their shared sacrifice, was, in her mind, primarily dedicated to ensuring the future happiness and security of their only child, Jackson, and his burgeoning family. She, a woman of simple tastes and profound integrity, had never craved the trappings of extreme luxury. Her deepest desire had always been for a family bound by love and mutual respect, a desire that, in hindsight, felt like a naive whisper against the roaring tide of their entitlement. For years, Serafina had been the silent, invisible architect of their extravagant lives, a phantom benefactor whose generosity they accepted as their due. Jackson, even in his youth, had shown flashes of an entitled streak, demanding the latest toys, dismissing chores, and expecting immediate gratification. After Arthur's death, this tendency had metastasized. Without Arthur's quiet, steady hand to guide him, Jackson had drifted, lacking direction and a genuine work ethic. His string of failed ventures, each more financially ruinous than the last, was a testament to his impulsive nature and his absolute aversion to accountability. There was the ill-fated, luxury pet boutique that sold exotic animal accessories to a non-existent market, costing Serafina $250,000. Then the disastrous online retail startup, Trendvault, which promised to revolutionize fast fashion but instead accumulated mountains of unsold inventory and staggering debt from poorly managed supply chains. Serafina had quietly covered every loss, hoping each setback would teach him a lesson, but it never did. Each failure only spurred a new, more audacious demand for fresh capital, a new, next big idea, that would surely turn things around. Briar had entered their lives like a perfectly coiffed storm, drawn to Jackson's inherited wealth like a moth to a flame. Serafina remembered the initial dinners, Briar's fawning compliments, her exaggerated admiration for Serafina's elegant taste. But beneath the veneer, Serafina had sensed a calculating glint in Briar's eyes, a hunger that had nothing to do with genuine affection. Briar quickly cemented herself as the primary orchestrator of their lavish lifestyle, her insatiable desires driving much of their excessive spending. When Jackson, after years of living in a comfortable but modest home, declared his desire for a grander lifestyle, pressured relentlessly by Briar, it was Serafina who had stepped in. She had purchased the sprawling, 7-bedroom mansion they now inhabited, a magnificent structure in the most exclusive part of the city, complete with a swimming pool, a tennis court, and a 5-car garage. Serafina remembered the real estate agent's hushed reverence as they walked through the marble halls, and Briar's triumphant smirk as she pointed out her preferred wing of the house. The down payment, a staggering sum that could have funded a small charity for a decade, had come directly from Serafina's accounts. And it didn't stop there. Every single month, the substantial mortgage payment, the exorbitant property taxes, and the seemingly endless utility bills for the mansion, heating, cooling, electricity, water, internet, were meticulously paid by Serafina. She didn't just pay them, she set up automatic transfers, ensuring they never had to lift a finger, never saw a bill. She even covered the salaries of their household staff, Maria, the quiet, efficient housekeeper, George, the stoic gardener, and Leo, the cheerful pool cleaner. Their luxury vehicles were also Serafina's generous gifts. Jackson drove a gleaming, top-of-the-line German sedan, a sleek, powerful machine replaced every 3 years without question, always the latest model with all the premium upgrades. Serafina recalled the casual way he would announce, "Mother, the new S-Class is out. Time for an upgrade," as if discussing a necessary household appliance. Briar, not to be outdone, insisted on a high-end SUV, a veritable mobile luxury suite, complete with heated leather seats and a panoramic sunroof, which Serafina also leased and then eventually purchased for her. When their eldest grandchild, Chloe, turned 16, she received a brand new convertible, a frivolous extravagance Serafina had only reluctantly agreed to after weeks of relentless nagging from Briar. "It's what all her friends have, Mother," Briar would whine, her voice saccharine, knowing Serafina's soft spot for her grandchildren. Serafina had tried to suggest something more practical, perhaps a reliable, safe compact car, but Briar had simply waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, Mother, you wouldn't understand. It's about status." The grandchildren's elite education was another colossal expense Serafina gladly bore. From their exclusive private elementary school, Sterling Academy, with its focus on arts and international languages, to their prestigious high school, Northwood High, renowned for its Ivy League placements, Serafina funded every penny. This included not only the tuition fees, which were astronomical, but also the myriad of extracurricular activities, Chloe's equestrian lessons, costing thousands a month for stable fees and riding gear, Leo's private golf coaching, complete with expensive club memberships, the elaborate school trips to Europe and South America, each one a small fortune, the state-of-the-art sports equipment, from custom-fitted skis to professional-grade tennis rackets, and even the personalized tutors they occasionally required for subjects they deemed too boring. Serafina attended every school play, every parent-teacher conference, every graduation, often sitting alone in the audience while Jackson and Briar arrived late or not at all, claiming busy schedules or important social engagements. She would watch Chloe perform a ballet recital or Leo deliver a presentation, her heart swelling with a quiet pride, even as she felt their parents' absence keenly. Her deepest desire, however, was never about the money. It was about affection, respect, and a genuine connection with her family. But she was consistently relegated to the role of a silent, omnipresent cash dispenser. Her quiet demeanor, once a source of comfort for Arthur, became a target for Jackson and Briar's thinly veiled insults. "Mother, you're so traditional," Briar would say, a dismissive wave of her perfectly manicured hand implying Serafina was hopelessly out of touch, her clothes outdated, her opinions quaint. Jackson would often cut her off mid-sentence, rolling his eyes as if her words were an inconvenience, his voice dripping with condescension. "Honestly, Mother, you wouldn't understand. It's a business thing. Far too complex for someone who doesn't network. Family gatherings, occasions Serafina yearned for, became exercises in quiet humiliation. She would prepare her signature dishes, a delicate roast chicken, her famous lemon meringue pie, only for them to be ignored in favor of lavish catering from the city's trendiest restaurants. She'd bring thoughtful, handmade gifts, knitted scarves or carefully curated antique books, only to see them discarded or regifted. She was frequently excluded from their lavish parties, hosted in the very home she had provided. "It's mostly for our friends, Mother. You'd be bored," Jackson would explain, not bothering to lower his voice as she overheard him. She once overheard Briar telling a friend on the phone, "Oh, Serafina. She's just around. You know, the quiet type. Bless her heart." The condescension was palpable, a constant, low-level hum of disrespect that chipped away at her spirit, leaving her feeling hollowed out and invisible. Serafina remembered vividly one particularly painful Christmas morning. She had spent weeks knitting personalized scarves for each family member, intricate patterns infused with her love and care, staying up late to ensure each stitch was perfect. When she presented them, Briar forced a strained smile. "Oh, Mother, how quaint. You shouldn't have bothered. We already have so many lovely cashmere ones." Later that day, Serafina found her own scarf, the one she had knitted for herself, tucked away in a charity donation pile, still with the tag on it. Jackson, meanwhile, had been openly complaining about the new luxury watch Serafina had bought him, a limited edition timepiece. "It's last year's model, Mother. I specifically said the new titanium one. This one doesn't even have the smart features." The unbridled entitlement was staggering, a raw wound to her generous heart. Then there was the constant financial drain. Jackson would call, not to check on her well-being, but to request more funds for his next big idea, which inevitably fizzled out, leaving a trail of unpaid invoices and disgruntled partners. He once demanded a substantial sum for an eco-friendly luxury resort, concept that never moved beyond a glossy brochure. Briar would casually mention a new designer handbag she absolutely needed for a charity gala or a spa weekend she deserved with her socialite friends, fully expecting Serafina to foot the bill. Serafina had paid for two of Jackson's most spectacular failed business ventures, each costing hundreds of thousands, money he had promised to pay back, but never did. She had covered Briar's exorbitant credit card debts more times than she cared to count, debts accumulated on lavish shopping sprees in Paris and Milan, and extravagant trips to exclusive resorts with her socialite friends, trips Serafina was never invited on. The mansion, their cars, their children's education, their very lifestyles, it was all Serafina's boundless generosity. Yet, they acted as if it was their birthright, an endless well from which they could draw without consequence or gratitude. Serafina often found herself staring out of her own modest apartment window, a place she had kept as her sanctuary, a quiet retreat from their demands. She would gaze at the bustling city below, wondering if her relentless giving had simply fostered a monster of ingratitude, if she was the architect of her own quiet misery. She longed for a simple hug, a genuine thank you, a moment where she felt truly loved for who she was, not for what she provided. She yearned for a quiet cup of tea with Chloe, a heartfelt conversation with Leo, but their lives were too busy, too grand for a mere grandmother. The idea of cutting them off had flickered in her mind before, a small, rebellious spark, quickly extinguished by overwhelming guilt or the faint, stubborn hope that perhaps, one day, they would see her, truly see her, beyond the money. But the incident with Chloe's graduation gift had been a turning point, a cold, harsh awakening. Chloe, demanding the latest model of a luxury convertible for her 18th birthday, had chosen a car costing well over 6 figures. When Jackson and Breyer's credit was unexpectedly declined at the dealership, a clear and alarming sign of their profound overspending and mounting debts, their panicked faces had turned to Serafina. Their immediate demands that she fix it, that she pay for the car in cash, had cemented a chilling realization. It was then, standing in the polished showroom, witnessing their unmasked desperation and sense of entitlement, that Serafina had quietly contacted Alaric, her late husband's trusted lawyer. Alaric, a man of quiet intelligence and unwavering loyalty, had served Arthur for decades and knew the family dynamics intimately. He had always respected Serafina's quiet strength. Over several discreet meetings, Serafina had started the process, slowly, meticulously, of moving her assets into protected trusts, creating financial firewalls, and preparing for an inevitable reckoning. She had known, deep down, that this day, this final, cruel act from them, was coming. It was merely a matter of time. And now, as the cold evening air enveloped her, she knew that time had arrived. Serafina's steps were steady as she walked the familiar path from the mansion to the small, elegant guest house on the property, which she still owned and had meticulously maintained for her occasional visits. Her hands, though slightly trembling, firmly grasped the small, silver-plated flip phone she kept for emergencies. This was not the sleek smartphone her grandchildren constantly stared at. This was a device of purpose, reliable and uncomplicated, chosen precisely for its simplicity and directness. She opened the door to the guest house, the familiar scent of lavender and old books a comforting embrace, a sharp contrast to the sterile opulence of the main house. She did not bother to turn on the lights, preferring the soft twilight that filtered through the large windows, casting long, peaceful shadows. She sat on the edge of the antique four-poster bed, its worn velvet headboard a familiar comfort, the silence of the room a stark contrast to the tumult she had just left. Her fingers, with a surprising dexterity, found the numbers she knew by heart. 2 rings, then a clear, professional voice answered. Alaric Davies, how may I help you? Alaric, Serafina said, her voice a low, steady murmur, it's Serafina. The time has come. There was a moment of silence on the other end, a silent acknowledgement of the code they had established months ago, a prearranged signal for the execution of her meticulously planned withdrawal. Alaric, calm and efficient, knew exactly what she meant. Understood, Serafina. I'm already at the downtown branch, as per our contingency plan. All the necessary documents are in order, signed and ready for immediate processing. Serafina took a deep, fortifying breath, a profound sense of clarity settling within her. Good. Proceed immediately. I want all direct debits, standing orders, and any forms of financial support to Jackson and Breyer's accounts, or for their benefit, to be severed. Effective immediately. She listed them with chilling precision, recalling every single, minute detail she had meticulously documented over the years, each payment a tiny chip in her spirit, now a weapon in her liberation. The mortgage on the mansion at 14 Willow Creek Lane, she began, her voice gaining strength with each item. Cancel the direct debit. Inform the bank that I will no longer be responsible for it. Let them know it's a personal decision, not a financial one on my end, that I am simply withdrawing my sponsorship. The luxury vehicle leases for the German sedan and the high-end SUV, and Chloe's convertible, terminate them. Initiate repossession if they resist, immediately. All credit accounts associated with their names that I am the primary guarantor for, or that draw funds from my accounts, revoke access, cancel the cards, freeze the lines of credit. Specifically, the Platinum Elite card used by Breyer for her extravagant shopping, the Global Explorer card used by Jackson for his business expenses and club memberships, and the supplementary cards held by Chloe and Leo for their daily whims. The tuition payments for their children, Chloe and Leo, at the Sterling Academy and Northwood High School respectively. Inform the schools that the tuition will no longer be covered by me. Any outstanding balances are now entirely their responsibility. I trust you will handle this with the utmost professionalism, Alaric, but with absolute firmness. Their monthly personal allowances, a substantial sum that covered their living expenses and discretionary spending, which was often thousands upon thousands, terminate those transfers. The salary for their household staff, the housekeeper, Maria, the gardener, George, the pool cleaner, Leo, also to be stopped. Let them know that their employment is no longer being funded by me, and that they should seek payment from their direct employers, Jackson and Breyer, from this point forward. Alaric listened, jotting down notes, his pen scratching against the crisp paper, a sound of methodical finality. Are you absolutely certain about this, Serafina? This is a comprehensive termination. There will be no going back. Their entire financial structure is built on your support. This will be a catastrophic shock. I am absolutely certain, Alaric, Serafina replied, her voice unwavering, a newfound steel in its tone. More certain than I have ever been about anything in my life. They have pushed me beyond measure, taken my generosity for granted, and treated me with utter contempt. Let the consequences of their actions be their own. It is time they learned to stand on their own. Consider it done, Alaric confirmed, his voice devoid of judgment, only efficiency. I will handle all the necessary communications and legalities. You can expect the first tremors to be felt within hours, perhaps by tomorrow morning at the latest. The banks will move swiftly. I'll keep you updated, but please, brace yourself for their inevitable reaction. Serafina thanked him, her thumb hovering over the end call button. A profound sense of release, mixed with a tremor of trepidation, washed over her. She knew the storm was coming, a tempest of their making, but for the first time in decades, she felt prepared, fortified, and utterly at peace with her decision. The silence of the guest house wrapped around her like a warm blanket, a prelude to the quiet life she had reclaimed. The first tremor, as Alaric had predicted, struck Breyer. It was late afternoon the following day. Breyer, in her usual pursuit of retail therapy, was at Haute Couture Haven, the city's most exclusive boutique, a sanctuary of designer labels and exorbitant prices where she felt most at home. She had just selected a bespoke gown, a shimmering confection of silk and lace by a renowned Italian designer, priced exorbitantly. It was for the upcoming charity gala, an event she considered crucial for maintaining her social standing. She presented her Platinum Elite card, Serafina's card, with a flourish, expecting the usual seamless transaction. The sales assistant, a young woman with an air of polite disdain, swiped it. The machine whirred, then a harsh, insistent beep echoed through the hushed boutique, cutting through the ambient classical music. Transaction declined, the assistant stated, her voice flat, her eyes betraying a hint of thinly veiled amusement. Would you like to try another card, Ms. Davies? Breyer scoffed, her face flushing a furious crimson. Declined? That's impossible. There must be some mistake. This card has an unlimited limit. Try it again. She prided herself on never having a card declined, on her effortless ability to command luxury. The assistant, a seasoned veteran of such embarrassments among the city's elite, tried again with a practiced, resigned sigh. The same, humiliating beep, louder this time, seemed to mock Breyer's carefully constructed facade. I'm afraid it's still declined, Ms. Davies. Perhaps you should contact your bank. It seems the primary account holder has placed a restriction. Mortified, Breyer snatched the card back, her face a mask of furious indignation. She muttered a hasty excuse about a system error and stormed out, leaving the gown draped on a velvet hanger, convinced it was a temporary glitch, a bank error, never once suspecting the true cause. Her mind immediately jumped to calling Serafina, but a stubborn pride held her back. Later that evening, the second tremor hit Jackson. He was attempting to pay for his absurdly expensive private club membership online, a membership that granted him access to exclusive golf courses, a members-only cigar lounge, and a network of equally affluent individuals. Serafina also paid for this, a monthly sum that could have easily covered a middle-class family's groceries for a month. He clicked Submit Payment using his Global Explorer card, the one linked directly to Serafina's private accounts for his business expenses and networking. The screen flashed red, payment failed. Insufficient funds or account restricted. He cursed loudly, tried another of his cards, then another, all connected to the same wellspring of his mother's wealth, each one, a flat rejection. He called the bank, furious, expecting a quick resolution, only to be met with a polite but firm explanation. Mr. Davies, the primary account holder has revoked all access and funding to these cards. They are no longer active, effective yesterday afternoon. Primary account holder? What are you talking about? Jackson demanded, his voice rising in disbelief and growing panic. My mother? Seraphina Davies? That's insane. She would never do that. There's been a mistake, a clerical error. The bank representative, bound by protocol, could only repeat the same information, coolly stating that the instruction had come directly from Mrs. Seraphina Davies. Jackson slammed the phone down, a knot of visceral unease tightening in his stomach. This was more than a glitch. This felt deliberate. The next morning, the earthquake began. The first call came from Sterling Academy, Chloe's elite private school. The headmistress, Ms. Albright, a woman known for her dignified composure, her voice laced with stern disappointment, informed Briar that Chloe's tuition payment for the new term had not gone through. Ms. Davies, we understand that sometimes there are clerical errors, but this is a substantial sum, and it is 2 weeks overdue. We require immediate payment, or regrettably, Chloe will not be permitted to attend classes starting next week. Her enrollment will be suspended. Briar, still reeling from her shopping humiliation and a sleepless night filled with nagging worries about the cards, shrieked into the phone. What are you talking about? My mother pays for that. Seraphina Davies. Call her. She handles all the finances. We have indeed attempted to contact Mrs. Davies, Ms. Albright replied, her tone chillingly calm, a hint of something more than mere protocol in her voice. And she informed us explicitly that she would no longer be responsible for the tuition. She stated that all financial obligations regarding Chloe's education are now entirely your responsibility. She also confirmed this in a formal letter to the school, which we received this morning. We have also sent a formal notice to your home address, which I trust you will receive shortly. Briar dropped the phone, her hands shaking. Her mind raced, a terrifying mosaic of facts clicking into place. The credit cards, now Chloe's tuition. No, it couldn't be. Not Seraphina. She was just a quiet, harmless old lady. She wouldn't dare. She couldn't. Moments later, the doorbell rang. It was the delivery driver for the weekly gourmet food subscription, a service that delivered exotic ingredients and pre-prepared meals from Michelin-starred chefs, a cornerstone of their effortless culinary lifestyle. He stood awkwardly on the doorstep, holding a large, insulated box overflowing with fresh produce and artisanal breads. Payment declined, ma'am. Your automatic payment failed yesterday. We can't leave the order without immediate payment. Briar, still in her silk robe, her hair disheveled, stared at him, then slammed the door in his face, her stomach lurching with a mixture of hunger and dread. Then came the calls from the car dealerships, one after another, each more devastating than the last. Mr. Davies, we regret to inform you that your lease payments have not been received for the last 2 months. Per the terms of your agreement, we are compelled to repossess the vehicle within 24 hours if the full outstanding balance is not settled. Jackson's sleek German sedan was first. Then, the call for Briar's SUV. And finally, the most infuriating of all, a call regarding Chloe's gleaming convertible. The primary funding source has been withdrawn, the agent explained, his voice flat, and the lease is now defaulted. We will be dispatching a tow truck by noon. Panic, cold and visceral, began to set in, suffocating them. Jackson and Briar confronted each other in the cavernous, echoing foyer, their usual bickering escalating into a full-blown screaming match. It's your mother, Jackson. She's finally lost it. She's trying to ruin us. She's a vindictive, hateful old woman. Briar shrieked, tears of rage streaming down her face, smearing her expensive night cream. She's trying to destroy her own grandchildren. Don't be ridiculous, Briar. Mother would never do this. She's just confused. Or maybe Alaric made a mistake, he's old too. Jackson retorted, though a creeping dread was already gripping him, tightening its icy grip around his chest. He tried to call Serafina, but her flip phone went straight to voicemail, a polite, pre-recorded message stating she was unavailable. He tried Alaric, who simply stated, his voice calm and unyielding, "My instructions are clear, Mr. Davies. All financial support has been terminated as per Mrs. Davies' explicit directive. I advise you to speak with her directly. My role is merely to execute her wishes." Alaric's tone left no room for doubt or argument. There was only one place left to go. The mansion, their mansion, now felt like a gilded cage slowly being stripped of its gold, its opulence a cruel reminder of their sudden, stark reality. They had to confront her. They had to make her see reason. They had to make her reverse this catastrophic decision. Their entire world depended on it. The confrontation was swift, brutal, and utterly definitive. Jackson and Briar arrived at Serafina's guest house in a whirlwind of panic and manufactured outrage. They had to hail a taxi. Their own cars had already been repossessed earlier that morning, the empty spaces in the grand garage a gaping wound in their pampered existence. They pounded on the guesthouse door, their faces pale and contorted with a mixture of fear and fury, their designer clothes rumpled from the hurried ride. Serafina, who had been quietly enjoying a cup of chamomile tea, its comforting aroma filling the air, rose from her armchair with a serene grace that belied the storm brewing outside her door. She opened the door, her gaze calm and unwavering, her expression unreadable. "Mother. What is the meaning of this?" Jackson bellowed, striding past her into the small living area, his voice hoarse with desperation. Briar was hot on his heels, her eyes wide and wild. "My credit cards are frozen. Chloe's tuition hasn't been paid. Our cars are being repossessed. Have you gone completely mad? Are you trying to destroy us?" Briar's voice, usually a simpering whisper when she wanted something, was now shrill with hysteria, tears welling in her eyes, though Serafina could discern no true sorrow in them, only fury. "How could you do this to us, Serafina? To your own son? To your grandchildren? Don't you care about their future? About our lives? We'll be ruined." Her hands clutched at her chest, a familiar tactic of feigned distress that had always worked before. Serafina simply looked at them, her silence more potent than any shout. She walked to the small fireplace, its mantelpiece adorned with simple, cherished keepsakes, her back to them, and picked up a delicate porcelain figurine, a tiny shepherdess, a gift from Arthur years ago. She turned it over in her hands, its smooth coolness a contrast to the fiery emotions in the room. "Mother, answer me." Jackson demanded again, his voice cracking with desperation. "What is this? Is it a test? Are you trying to teach us some twisted lesson? Because if it is, it's a cruel one." Serafina turned slowly, her gaze sweeping over their frantic, entitled faces, devoid of any genuine empathy or understanding. "A lesson, Jackson? Perhaps it is. But it is one you should have learned long ago." Her voice was soft, yet it carried an undeniable steel, a quiet authority they had never heard before. "For 20 years, I have poured my life's savings, my inheritance, my very essence, into your happiness. I bought you this mansion, paid its every expense, financed your every whim. I gave you luxury cars, paid for your children's elite education, covered your endless debts, bailed you out of every failed venture. I even paid for your household staff, ensuring you never had to lift a finger in the very home I provided. What did I ask in return?" She paused, allowing the silence to hang heavy in the air, broken only by Briar's ragged breathing. Jackson and Briar shifted uncomfortably, their anger momentarily eclipsed by a flicker of unease, a dawning comprehension of the sheer scale of her past generosity. "I asked for respect," Serafina continued, her voice gaining strength, each word a hammer blow, "for kindness, for a modicum of gratitude. I asked for a place at your table, a moment of your time, a word of genuine affection. I simply wanted to be seen, to be valued, to be part of the family I had given everything to. Instead, I received mockery, disdain, and exclusion. You treated me not as a mother, but as an ATM. A silent, endlessly dispensing machine, to be used and then ignored. A convenient source of funds to fuel your self-indulgence. Briar gasped, feigning outrage, her eyes wide. That's not fair. We love you, Mother. We appreciate everything you've done. We have busy lives. Serafina's eyes narrowed slightly, a glint of something akin to pity, but mostly cold resolve. Love? Appreciation? Is it love when you openly mock my traditional ways, Briar, dismissing my choices and opinions? When you discard my handmade gifts as quaint and throw them into donation piles? When you exclude me from every family gathering hosted in the very house I bought for you, claiming I would be bored? Is it appreciation, Jackson, when you cut me off mid-sentence, roll your eyes at my opinions, and demand endless sums of money for your frivolous failures, never once offering to repay a penny? When you complain about a luxury watch being last year's model? Jackson tried to interrupt, stumbling over his words, but Mother, you don't understand the pressure we're under. We have a lifestyle to maintain. Our friends, our reputation. Your reputation? Serafina interjected, a rare, bitter laugh escaping her lips, a sound of profound disillusionment. Your reputation is built on my money, Jackson. Not on your achievements, not on your character. It's a facade, a house of cards, and it is crumbling precisely because I have decided to withdraw the foundation. You have built nothing of your own. But what about Chloe and Leo? Briar cried, clutching at her chest, her performative tears now tinged with genuine fear for her own comfort. They'll be kicked out of school. Their lives will be ruined. Is that what you want, Serafina? To destroy your own grandchildren's future? Their future, Serafina stated calmly, her voice unwavering, is not my responsibility to fund indefinitely. It is yours. You are their parents. For years, you outsourced your parental duties, your financial responsibilities, to me. You taught them entitlement, not resilience, not the value of hard work or personal responsibility. They will now learn the value of hard work, just as you both will. It is a lesson long overdue. She looked at Jackson directly, her gaze piercing through his crumbling bravado. Do you remember when you pushed me out of that house yesterday, Jackson? When you screamed, "Get out, you old fool." Jackson flinched violently, his face draining of color, his bravado finally cracking, revealing the terrified man beneath. I was angry, Mother. I didn't mean it. It was a moment of weakness. I was stressed. It was the culmination of 20 years of abuse, Serafina corrected him, her voice chillingly devoid of emotion, each word precise and unarguable. That moment, that public humiliation, that final, brutal act of disrespect, was the final straw. It opened my eyes completely. And in that very instant, I knew what I had to do. My lawyer, Alaric, was already at the bank, awaiting my instructions. I simply gave him the go-ahead. The decision was made the moment your hand touched my back. Briar let out a keening wail, a sound of pure, unadulterated shock and fury. You called your lawyer? You planned this? You vindictive old woman. You set us up. I planned for my peace, Briar, Serafina countered, her gaze unwavering, her quiet power radiating through the small room. I planned for my dignity. I planned for a life where I am valued for who I am, not exploited for what I provide. Every single financial tie has been severed. The mansion's mortgage, your credit cards, your allowances, the children's tuition, all of it. Every last penny of my support has been withdrawn. You are entirely on your own now. Jackson's face went utterly white, his jaw slack. You can't do this. We'll be ruined. We'll lose everything. We have nothing. Everything you have, Serafina stated, her voice calm and firm, you gained through my generosity. What you lose now, you never truly earned. You will learn what it means to stand on your own 2 feet, without a bottomless pit of my money to fall into. My decision is final. There will be no reversal. No second chances. You are no longer my financial responsibility. You will learn the true meaning of consequences. She walked towards the door, her movements deliberate and firm, her head held high. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have plans. Good day, Jackson. Briar. She opened the door, a silent invitation for them to leave, the setting sun casting long shadows into the guesthouse. Jackson stood there, utterly defeated, his face a mask of shock and growing panic, the full weight of her words finally crushing him. Briar, still muttering curses under her breath, her tears now truly born of despair, finally realized the futility of their pleas. Their manipulative tactics, their emotional blackmail, their feigned affection, none of it worked anymore. Serafina, the quiet, gentle woman they had so ruthlessly exploited, had become an unyielding fortress. They turned and stumbled out of the guest house, leaving Serafina standing alone, finally, truly, free. The drive back to the mansion was steeped in a suffocating silence, broken only by Briar's sporadic, angry sobs and Jackson's strained sighs. The reality of Serafina's unwavering resolve began to sink its cold teeth into them, a bitter, metallic taste in their mouths. They had truly lost everything. The moment they stepped back into the opulent foyer, the very air of the house seemed to mock them, the vastness of the space now feeling like a hollow echo chamber of their impending ruin. It was Serafina's house, not theirs, and it was quickly becoming their inescapable prison. The next few days were a blur of escalating chaos, each hour bringing a new, unwelcome confirmation of their new reality. The formal notice from the bank regarding the mansion's mortgage arrived, a stark, legal document detailing the impending foreclosure proceedings. The repossession agencies, relentless and efficient, appeared at the gates with flatbed trucks, towing away the luxury cars, leaving gaping, empty spaces in the grand garage that once housed their symbols of status. Chloe and Leo, confused and tearful, were informed by their schools that they could no longer attend classes until their tuition was paid in full. The children, accustomed to a life of effortless privilege, were bewildered, then angry. What's going on, Dad? Why can't I go to school? My friends are making fun of me. Chloe wailed, her entitlement now laced with genuine distress and public humiliation. Leo, typically quiet, lashed out in frustration, breaking an expensive vase in the foyer. Briar, a woman whose entire identity was wrapped in designer labels, lavish social events, and a carefully curated public image, found herself in a living nightmare. Her high-end credit cards, once her passport to endless shopping sprees and carefree indulgence, were utterly useless. Her social calendar, once filled with exclusive luncheons and glittering galas, emptied as she realized she could no longer afford to keep up appearances. Her fair-weather friends, superficial companions who had admired her only for her perceived wealth and the lavish parties she hosted, slowly distanced themselves, their thinly veiled pity more insulting than outright rejection. "Oh, darling, is everything all right? You seem a little stressed," one of them commented at a chance encounter, her eyes raking over Briar's increasingly frayed appearance, her once perfect manicure now chipped, her designer clothes showing signs of wear. The shame was unbearable, a constant, gnawing pain. Jackson, meanwhile, frantically tried to salvage what he could, his phone glued to his ear. He called former business contacts, hoping to secure a loan or a new venture, but his reputation for failed enterprises and his now public financial predicament preceded him like a dark cloud. No one was willing to take a risk on him. He tried to sell some of the expensive art and antiques in the mansion, only to discover that most of them were still technically Serafina's property, acquired with her funds over the years, carefully documented by Alaric. The house, once an illusion of their wealth and success, now stood as a monument to their impending ruin, its grand rooms echoing with their despair. The household staff, loyal to Serafina who had always paid them promptly and generously, quickly understood the situation. The housekeeper, Maria, who had seen Serafina's quiet suffering for years and admired her quiet strength, simply packed her things one morning, leaving a polite but firm note that her services were no longer required as her employer had withdrawn funding. The gardener and pool cleaner followed suit, offering their regrets but stating their need for reliable payment. The mansion, once bustling with activity and polished to a gleam, grew quiet, the dust slowly accumulating on its surfaces, the once sparkling swimming pool turning a sickly green with neglect. Serafina, in stark contrast, began to breathe again, a deep, cleansing breath that filled her with a lightness she hadn't felt in decades. After the confrontation, she felt an immense weight lift from her shoulders, a crushing burden she had carried for far too long. The guest house, once a temporary refuge, became a true sanctuary of peace and self-discovery. The first thing she did was call Martha, a dear old friend she hadn't seen in years, a woman who truly cared for Serafina, not her money or her status. "Martha, I'm free," Serafina whispered, a tremor of pure joy in her voice. "Are you free for tea tomorrow? I have so much to tell you." Martha, sensing the profound shift and the deep happiness in her friend's voice, agreed instantly, her own voice warm and welcoming. Serafina spent the next few days in quiet contemplation, a luxury she hadn't afforded herself in years. She made a list of all the things she had put off, all the simple pleasures she had denied herself while funding her family's opulent but ungrateful lifestyle. She ordered new books from a small independent bookstore, subscribed to a beautiful gardening magazine, and even booked a small, intimate guided tour to Italy, a lifelong dream she had always deferred in favor of others' wants. She felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in decades, a burgeoning sense of self-worth that had been buried under layers of their ingratitude and her own misplaced sense of duty. She walked through the guest house, deciding how she would redecorate it, making it truly her own, reflecting her simple, elegant tastes. She began to plan for her future, a future that was finally, truly, authentically hers, unburdened by the demands of others. Months melted into a new season, and life for Serafina blossomed into a vibrant tapestry of newfound freedom and self-discovery. The small guest house, now lovingly redecorated to reflect her own serene aesthetic, with comfortable armchairs, shelves brimming with books, and windows overlooking a flourishing rose garden she tended herself, became her true home. Serafina, once confined by the invisible chains of family obligation, found herself traveling with a newfound joy. The trip to Italy was merely the beginning. She followed it with journeys to the serene landscapes of Japan and the bustling markets of Morocco. She explored the charming villages of Tuscany, marveled at the ancient ruins of Rome, and savored authentic pasta dishes, each experience a testament to the joy of spending her own money on herself, for herself. She enrolled in a local art class, rekindling a long-forgotten passion for watercolors, her brushstrokes expressing a quiet joy. She volunteered at a community garden, finding immense satisfaction in nurturing new life from the earth, watching seeds sprout and blossom, a stark contrast to the barren landscape of her past relationships. She reconnected with old friends, building genuine bonds based on shared laughter and mutual respect, not financial dependency. Her days were filled with purpose, her heart with a quiet contentment, a sense of profound peace. She had shed the skin of the perpetual provider and stepped into the light of her own worth, finally living a life on her own terms. Jackson and Briar, however, had descended into a harsh reality, stripped of every comfort and illusion. The mansion had been foreclosed upon and sold at auction, its grand emptiness now a bitter, mocking memory. They had been forced to move into a modest, two-bedroom apartment in a less desirable part of the city, a stark, cramped contrast to their former sprawling estate. Jackson, unable to secure any significant employment due to his lack of a genuine work ethic and his damaged reputation in the city's business circles, grudgingly took a low-paying job in a retail store, stocking shelves and dealing with demanding customers, a stark humiliation for a man who once drove luxury cars. Briar, stripped of her credit cards, her social standing, and her household staff, found herself overwhelmed by the mundane demands of basic budgeting, grocery shopping, and housework. The designer handbags and luxury cars were replaced by grocery lists and bus schedules, her once manicured hands now calloused from cleaning. Her social life had evaporated completely. Their children, Chloe and Leo, after a brief period of shock and rebellion, were eventually enrolled in public schools, learning to adapt to larger classes and a different social environment. The initial humiliation had slowly given way to a grudging acceptance, even a nascent understanding, of what it meant to live without a safety net. They learned to take public transport, to manage smaller allowances, and to appreciate the simple things they had once taken for granted, like a home-cooked meal or a shared laugh with their parents. The initial bitterness lingered, but the harsh lessons of self-sufficiency were slowly, painfully, being absorbed. They were, for the first time, truly learning to stand on their own 2 feet, forced to confront the harsh consequences of a lifetime of entitlement. Serafina, however, harbored no ill will towards them. She simply existed, free and unburdened by their choices. Her victory was not in their downfall, but in her own liberation. The moral of her story was clear, a timeless truth etched into the very fabric of human existence: love and respect, true affection and genuine gratitude, can never be bought with money. They must be earned through kindness, empathy, and mutual appreciation. For years, Serafina had poured herself out, believing that her relentless generosity would eventually earn her the love she craved, the recognition she deserved. But in doing so, she had forgotten the most crucial act of loyalty to herself. She had learned that sometimes, the greatest act of love, both for oneself and for others, is to finally close the faucet of endless giving, allowing all involved to face the consequences of their actions and to grow into their own, authentic selves. This incredible story of Serafina's journey from quiet suffering to profound liberation is a powerful reminder that true wealth lies not in what we possess, but in our self-worth and the genuine connections we forge. If you were moved by Serafina's courage and resolve, be sure to hit that like button. Our channel is dedicated to bringing you more compelling tales of resilience, justice, and life-changing lessons. Don't miss out on our next story. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you're always updated. Now, we want to hear from you. Have you ever encountered similar ingratitude or entitlement in your own life? What did you do? Or, if you were in Serafina's shoes, what would you have done differently? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We love reading your insights.